We all cried ourselves to sleep that night, thanks to you. I hope you're happy now. Vicki, we appreciate what you do for us. We enjoy it very much. So let's get back on the schedule, or something that is at least kind of looks like that. Let me see here. First of all, folks, be sure and take your cell phones, put them on stun instead of kill, vibrate, you know. And I want to bring up Lisa Norton to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem. And here you go, Lisa. If you'll stand and face the flag, ladies and gentlemen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God. Justice for all. Oh, say when you say, by the dawn's early light, once so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last. With stripes and bright stars, through the perilous night, o'er the ramparts gallantly stream, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You have the invocation, do you not? We're going to go right in.
Okay. I'm gonna let it memorize it. I don't know why I signed up for all this because it really makes me nervous.
You're doing great.
Okay. Okay. Easy. You simply said, trust me. I give myself to you. I will live this life with gratitude, appreciating every little thing, its difficulties and its pleasures. For all I have more than to say. Bless this food before us, the friends beside us, and the love between us. Amen.
Introductions.
Oh.
Is that you too?
I'm an overachiever today, guys. At this time, we're going to ask anyone that's brought a guest to stand up and introduce. Visiting Rotarians first. Do we have any visiting Rotarians? No. So we'll start over here with guests. Does this table have any guests?
I brought a guest. Stand up, Bill. Stand up. This is my preacher. His name is Bill Allen. He's the pulpit minister at West Irwin Church of Christ. Kim and I met him 6.5 years ago, and after about a month or so, we just immediately really liked him. He works hard at his job. You can mess with him. You can tell him jokes. He's got a great sense of humor, and he gives as good as he gives. I have told Bill not to believe anything that any of you folks say, and you guys don't believe anything he says about me. Bill, we're glad to have you.
Welcome, Bill. Do we have any guests back at this table back in the back? No? How about over here?
Gentleman sitting here with me, Tracy Bailey, he's bishop here today. He's got a long research in all woods.
Awesome. Welcome back, Tracy. Great, thank you. Awesome. Anybody back visiting? Do we have any visitors back in that back table? No? How about over here? No? Okay, go ahead, Jack.
I have my wife with me, Janelle.
Hi, Janelle.
She's a wonderful wife and a wonderful person.
Yes, she is.
And I also brought a guest, he's sitting right over here, it's the hardest working man I know, my husband, Scott Morton.
All right, thank you, Lisa. And I want to thank our greeters for today. Lisa Norton, everybody give it up for Lisa. And our other greeter for today was Lisa Norton, so give it up for her. She's doing everything for all of us today. And now it's time, that time we all look forward to, This Week in History, featuring our own Paul Glasser.
Thank you, thank you. It was on today, the 28th of October, 1962. We talked about this last week. Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev informed the United States that he would dismantle and withdraw nuclear missiles that had been placed in Cuba, bringing an effective end to a standoff that had put the U.S. and the Soviet Union on the brink of nuclear war. On the 29th of October, 1929, the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 30.57% of its value in a single day, closing at 230.07. By July 8th of 1932, it would close at 41.22, having lost 89% of its value from its peak in 1929. A 30-year-old man who bought stock in June of 1929 would not see a full recovery in value in his lifetime. On the 30th of October, 1534, Parliament passed the Supremacy Act, making King Henry VIII and all successive English monarchs, quote, the only supreme head on earth of the Church in England. It was a thumb in the eye of the Roman Catholic Pope Clement, and it resulted in Henry's excommunication 4 years later. The act broke church ties with Rome, and the language of the act operates to this day to the benefit of Queen Elizabeth II. On the 31st of October in 1517, a lot of 16th century here, German, and speaking again of religion, German priest Martin Luther effectively launched the Protestant Reformation by tacking his 95 Theses to the door of the Castle Church in Wittenberg, Germany. Whether or not he actually tacked the document to the door is disputed. What is not disputed is that the 95 Theses brought out into the open theological disputes, as well as disputes as to the fiscal management of the Roman Catholic Church, many of which rage on to this day. On the 1st of November, 1765, the Stamp Act, the first direct tax on the American colonies, was enacted by Parliament. Following vociferous outcry, it was repealed a year later in 1766, but the damage was done. The Stamp Act effectively put in motion events leading to the American Revolution. On the 2nd of November, 1947, Howard Hughes flew the Spruce Goose, an airplane for 1 mile at an altitude of 70 feet. It was its only flight. The airplane was actually not made of spruce, it was made of laminated birch, and remains the largest wingspan airplane ever built. A crew of 300 workers, all sworn to secrecy, maintained the airplane in flying condition until 1962. The crew was reduced to 50, and they worked until Howard Hughes' death in 1976. And on the 3rd of November, 1948, President Harry Truman held up a copy of that day's Chicago Tribune, bearing a banner headline that said, Dewey defeats Truman. Most newspapers had predicted a Dewey victory. The New York Times had opined, and this is a quote, if Truman is nominated, he will be forced to wage the loneliest campaign in recent history. Well, eschewing the press, Truman mounted his famous whistle-stop campaign that put him in daily contact with voters. He won the election by 3 million popular votes, taking 28 states. Birthdays in the coming week, actually today, tomorrow, and Saturday. Today is Bill Gates' 66th birthday. It is also Julia Roberts' 53rd birthday today. Original Charlie's Angel Kate Jackson turns 73 tomorrow. Yeah, really, huh? Actor Richard Dreyfuss turns 74 tomorrow. And on Saturday, the Fonz, Henry Winkler, turns 76.
Whoa.
And that's this week in history.
All right, thank you, Paul, thank you. And let me see here, where are we now? Rotary business, projects to be funded. Dr. D.M. Edwards would like some help with the Guatemala hospital project. D.M., come on up and tell us a little bit about it for a few minutes here.
The big thing to know is that we don't have, for the Tyler Rotary Foundation, some years, like with the project at the new dental hygiene facility at Tyler Junior College, that was a $50,000 project. When we did the handicap assisted van for the Veterans Center here in Tyler, that was about a $50,000 project. We've done some other large ones. This year, we're only raising $12,000 that benefits the Bethesda Dental Clinic. We've already presented that check a few weeks ago to Dr. Nichols. We're doing a women's hospital facility, maternity clinic in Guatemala that lacks proper plumbing and lacks air conditioning. And then we're doing a wonderful project for Camp B on the kitchen at their new facility. Those are about $6,000 a piece. We've already had quite a few contributions come in, but we're inviting all the club members, whether it's a large gift or a small gift. If you'll make it between now and the 1st of December, we hope to wrap up both of those projects before the end of this year.
I bet you we can get it done, DM. It's just kind of the way this club is. Somebody needs help or something like that, we roll up our sleeves and get to work, you know? World Polio Day was October 24th. Today's our last day to collect. We're going to be celebrating and collecting our double up contributions, quote unquote. And if everybody could give at least $53, that help us meet our club Polio Plus goal. And we'll become members of the District 5830 Polio Posse, okay? Volunteer opportunity with PATH, Codes for Kids, 2 separate days, Monday, November the 8th from 4 to 6, and Thursday, November the 16th from 4 to 6. Sign up sheets in the front lobby, and we need 4 to 5 volunteers each day. Katie came to me earlier and said we are still short some volunteers, so if you can help out folks, please step on up and do that. And we also, Dixie brought this up at the board meeting. They need coats for big kids, not just the little kids, but the big kids. Is that right, Dixie? Yes. She said yes. So that means I'm right. Right, Dixie? Okay. Just making sure we're on the same path here. Okay.
Bill, my bank's at drop-off location for those two.
Okay. Jennifer's Bank, Eubank, they have drop-off locations. So that's there for your added convenience. Thanks for letting me know. Let me see here. Bourbon and barbecue next Thursday at Jack and Janelle's house. Jack's going to talk to us a little bit about his home today, his historic home. But the cost is $25 per person. Please prepay Holly. And show of hands, just raise your hand. Who is receiving the weekly bulletin and club runner emails? Who's getting those? Okay, if you haven't signed up for Club Runner, it's real easy. You just go to the App Store or whatever you use for your Android or whatever, and just search for it. And it's right there for you. Download it. Makes it real easy for us to communicate with each other. Yes.
The reason I ask that is that there are members that are not getting the bulletin and not getting the emails I send out. And so it's been blocked as spam by their email provider, and I have to go in and unblock it. So if you are not getting them, let me know so I can go in and take care of that, please.
Okay,
Thank
you. Everybody get that? You didn't just call Holly, okay? Need your October volunteer hours, please email those to Holly. And our program for next week, and this is what's written down here. It says Robin Hood Brains. Huh?
Brian.
Oh, Robin Hood Bryans, you're right. Okay. All right. Okay. Dyslexic, yeah, okay. And now for our president-elect, Allison Cameron, we'd like to have him come forward and introduce today's speaker. There you go, Allison.
Thank you, President Bill. This will be mercifully brief. Our presenter this morning has one of the most recognizable last names in all of Tyler. He is retired, and he says this program is gonna be fun. Jack, you got it. Jack Pollard.
Thank you very much, Allison. Let me know if you can hear me or not. Can you hear me okay? Okay, what I'm gonna do is sit here and go through some slides with you and talk about the location where our party is. Now, this is where the party is going to be held. It's, this is a picture of it in earlier years, before I started to work on it, about 1972, actually. And this is the location, but the house doesn't look like this. It's been called a haunted house. It looks it in this picture by my daughter and also by Jeannie Hibbs, the mother of Billy Hibbs, at a time when she had an art gallery in the front two rooms of it. And our cats think it's haunted because they keep looking out in rooms at something and we can't see anything there. We have been told that if there are spirits there, they're happy spirits and they're not going to cause us a problem in our party. We can eat and drink all we wish.
Good.
I entitled this Pollard's Folly because the night, or briefly after I got started on this project, a friend went over with me and I had to go out and hook up the lights at the saw service because the electricity was not on. And that friend said, "Pollard, you're out of your friggin' mind." Maybe that wasn't the word that he used, but nevertheless, many of you know this friend of mine because he was born and raised in Tyler. And he was thinking of I was over there trying to use lye, a solution of lye to get the lead paint to turn loose in the back. And it just wasn't working. I had tried a lot of things that didn't work. That was one of them. So anyhow, the friend was Martin Brown, that some of you know. He is deceased now. First of all, I owe credits to not only these people and these organizations, but also to D.M. Edwards and to Jim Blair, 3, and to others who have helped me get the TV set hooked up and working. Yesterday afternoon, I was in kind of a panic situation, not knowing whether I could get this TV set to work. And I had lots of help, including the manager, Eric, of the club here. And I don't remember, DM, what's Eric's last name? Ivy. We're back to this house. This is a picture that was taken by a Jason Boyce in 1972. This was before I had a driveway in the house. Actually, it was before I owned the house. Now, whenever I first went in this house with Helen Campbell to look at it, we were up in the tower, and even though I didn't have problem with old age trembles then, my legs were just shaking in fear of the height. It's between 35 and 40 feet from the floor in the tower to the ground below. I was dreadfully scared of heights. I had to learn to overcome that. Also, do you remember the movie The Money Pit?
Yeah.
And one of the opening scenes, the staircase falling down? Well, I didn't have anything like that happen, but by the time we started to work on the initial renovation, the floor joist in the kitchen had separated from the seals and were on the ground. The walls in the kitchen were 18 inches out of plumb. Somehow Greg Rainey got that back together where it has held since then, and the floor is still in there. Now, there were some mistakes that we made along the way, one of which had to do in the kitchen. The reason that that kitchen flooring is there now, which turned out to be a blessing, is that I had planned to put some kind of parquet flooring over this and use it as a subflooring. But in his calculations, Greg, one of his few mistakes he made at that, because he was just starting out, he didn't build the kitchen cabinets high enough that I could ever pull the dishwasher out and have it worked on. Well, that wouldn't work without having to take the floor up. And I couldn't see going forward with that. So we put what I was going to use as a subflooring back in, and it's since put a polyurethane finish on it. Now, I don't have any pictures of the house when it was built in 1873. I can tell you what the footprint is, or what we believe to be the footprint from evidence of that was left behind in the house whenever we pulled the wallpaper off. The house was of a French mansard design that was just the entryway and the room to the left that now is my wife's studio, and the staircase were in the original house. With upstairs, the footprint was just a room above, the trunk room. The windows on the second story were dormer windows other than the one underneath the tower. And the reason I can tell that is because of some pictures, one of which I'll show you, is where the wall was straightened. You can see once the wallpaper was torn off, where they put the interior sheathing, spliced it in when they straightened the walls. Also, when I was working on painting the windows outside, when you scrape the old paint off, you can see how many layers there are underneath it. So you can see that the windows were original by the layers of paint. Now, this is the oldest picture I have of the house. This was back, I'm sure it's kind of fuzzy because the picture is from the 1890s. Probably after 1895, because I don't see John Douglas as the man in this picture. And he built the house after he married Keturah Douglas, his second wife, in 1872. They built it in 1873. That was just the footprint that I showed you earlier, the one room over one room, and then the tower. An interesting thing about this picture is, one, we're going to tell a story later on about this magnolia tree that's in front, and the banister rail. Now, which I tried to duplicate with when I replaced the banister rail. Now, this is a picture of it when the Hollands were there. That was furnished by a lady who was raised as a Holland, Geraldine Holland Ryberg Garrett. We knew her as Geraldine Garrett. One day Janelle heard somebody talking about Joseph, who we bought the house from, in the driveway, and Janelle went running out, and here was a daughter, a lady that was raised in this house as a daughter of the Hollands, which she happened, her mother had died in childbirth, her mother was a sister of Mrs. Holland, and what they did was to spread the children out among the families. So because the husband, he couldn't farm and raise them too. This is a picture from 1967 that was on the front of the Smith County Historical Society Chronicles. The magnolia tree is gone. This was the house that was initially, the picture that was initially on the screen. Now, this is getting to be a little more like the house looks now. This is prior to the time I put the banister rail up. There also, that pecan tree that's here has since been removed, and the only tree in the front yard is this water oak. Now this is what I like to call the Pollard compound in downtown Tyler. You remember Jack King used that expression quite vocally, downtown Tyler, in his ads for King Chevrolet. We have since, you see the garage that we added that was not exactly in the same architecture, but it was to match the house. Now this is possibly the oldest building on the property. This is a little, what I call the shed in the back. We have used it for storage and for tools until we built the garage that has a workshop in it. And this could be the place that they lived at one time prior to moving into this house, although it's fairly well documented that they never lived in this meager accommodations. They lived with other people in town. Actually, when they got married, they lived in Palestine because John was running a store for a Mr. Smith down there that he thought he was going to become partners with. And somehow that didn't work out. The next I hear about business, John is operating a mercantile store in Tyler on the square. And these are just some pictures of the house. This in part shows you pretty significantly the height involved. An interesting thing about this, and these are different pictures. Obviously, this is after a previous snow, not the one we had last year. And this is probably the flowers after the one we had last year, what's left of them. A picture that's, we have a gated entrance into the garage, and it shows the garden house in the rear back here, the greenhouse that was one of the additions we made to the property. Now, interesting enough, I've been around that house longer than any other of the adult men. I don't know whether that's good or bad. John Douglas was born in 1843. He died in 1893 after fighting a fire. The story is that he jumped in a watering trough on the square and he ended up with pneumonia. I don't know how that goes. Dr. Hudnall would know more about that. I know telling what he died from, but what caused it. But I wouldn't think that that would lead to his death. But at any rate, that's the story. Now, and then the next man of the house was a Dr. Holland, Actually, they didn't buy the house until the 1920s, but they rented it. This is where the story was a mystery for me, because I felt like they came in earlier, and they did. They rented the house from the time of Couture's death, John Douglas's widow's death. And they lived there, or he lived with this family there for 21 years. Now, at that time, there were only 3 families that have owned this house, so it stayed rather intact. And I've tried not to destroy it in my 41 years of being there, although it's been a wonderful place to live. Now, this is a picture of John Douglas. As I said, he was born in 1843 in Talladega, Alabama. He was a soldier in the Confederate Douglas Battery, which was his brother it was named after his brother because his brother was the commanding officer of it. Now, he didn't enlist initially in that battery. He was traded into, evidently, I don't know how they did it, but they could trade soldiers. His brother wanted him in his battery because he was a large man and he loved to fight. They traded him for a Robert Limnosky, who was a musician and who hated fighting and hated war. He just was involved against maybe his better will. And so John Douglas always said when there was a problem, he was at least a better soldier than Robert Limnosky. John was a large man. His 2 brothers were also in the battery, Eli and James, the commanding officer. James was prematurely gray, the commanding officer. Eli was a small man, so they nicknamed them Big Doug, Little Doug, and Old Doug, referring to their commander as Old Doug. Also, John Douglas was quite a prankster. He would ride double after battles when they were leaving behind his brother. His brother would be saying, "Whoa," and he would be kicking the horse in the flanks just as a prank, because I think this is another picture I found in my photographs in our computer that is of John Douglas. I don't think this is Couture. I think this may be his sister, Mary Broughton. Now, this is a picture of Couture. John wrote to his sister, Mary Broughton, that she was a fine statue. She carried herself well. She was a highly educated person. I guess by fine statue, they meant that she was stacked, because she was a beautiful woman. And here are some other pictures of her. And at least,
my preacher here today, Jack.
oh, okay, well, we don't talk that way at Rotary. This is just because you have a nervous old man that's out of his comfort zone that says such things. Usually, the language is much better. But I think you understood what I was saying.
I refuse to make a comment.
Good. Anyway, after John's death, here she is, a beautiful, rich widow, which many men would like to marry. Her first suitor was a French tutor that was living at her house to tutor her son. The magnolia tree that I pointed out to you earlier His story goes that he climbed up in that one day and threatened to kill himself if she didn't marry him. Well, as it turned out, she didn't marry him and he didn't kill himself, so the drama was over soon. Then her next suitor was a preacher by the name of Fillmore Sample. She married him in 1895. Now, John died in 1893. So she was definitely courted by this man soon. She divorced him by 1897, assumed her name Douglas, and the story goes, I like to tell it, is a little sample of Fillmore was enough. And she decided to move on. I probably was not done in that day and age. But she was a strong lady and strong-willed, and she was considered by John to be a business partner, not just a person that was, which my wife is a strong lady also. So that the house has been known for strong women. Now this is a picture, it's not very good, of Dr. Holland. Now he was born in 1893. He died, no, not 1893, it was 1859 in Jasper County, Georgia. He came to Tyler by way of Oman, Browning, and Starville, and he practiced medicine for 45 years. And the family story goes that he took too many of his own prescriptions and possibly peddled some illicit drugs on the side. I don't know whether he just, but these are notes of conversations I had with descendants of the family. This is a picture of the scaffolding that I worked on to paint the tower initially. I was scared for anybody else to get on that tower. I was scared for me to get on the tower because I was scared of heights at that time. But I was more, we had carpenters up there that were standing on the ledge, wrecking old shingles off of the tower and putting new ones back up and putting the ones that were good enough to use back up. I couldn't talk them into painting. They said they were carpenters, not painters. And I just had to gut up and do it. Here's a picture of the plank I stood on to paint the top of the tower. Well, it was really very sturdy, but not very big. I learned to quit trembling from heights pretty quickly because it was the baptism of fire to work up there. Actually, one time I stretched an extension ladder across to the tops of these windows on the north side from the ridge of the house to work on it. Now, that was probably the dumbest thing I ever did. Fortunately, it didn't break and stayed together. Another picture of the scaffolding. Another picture of the house before I put the banister rail up. One of the problems is to decide on what color scheme to use in the house. I wanted to be somewhat true to the historic colors, which when I went in the attic, I didn't care. You've seen these old gingerbread houses with the red and the green. I found this and I wasn't fond of it. Fortunately, I went around the corner and found where this had been painted over. Now, whether it was the primer or the real paint, I don't know. But what I did was to take, I didn't care for the must. I think the color scheme was very much like the McClendon house is now. But I did not want the mustard color. I wanted more life in the yellow with less green. And I wanted more yellow in the brown, it turned out, to give it some life because it was kind of a dull brown. One of the discoveries in the house had to do when I was looking at the equipment and the toilet that's still in the house. Probably in the 1904 additions, most all of the work that involved renovation was finished by 1904 by the Douglases. Plumbing was probably added in about 1904 because in the dating of the equipment, I found a date said 1904 in this toilet tank, in the equipment that was in it. Another feature inside that was left over was this clawfoot tub. Now that clawfoot tub you can almost swim in. That's 8 feet long. It's huge. At first I was going to move it downstairs. And we didn't move, you're right. We didn't move it anywhere. It was too heavy. And decided to leave it right where it was. It was there for a reason and it belonged there because I didn't have giants to help me, although my plumber at that time was rather a giant. Now, if you remember back, in this house, you will see a bay window that's located facing south on this picture in the 1890s. Now that is the same bay window that's at the back of that. Now they simply, in one of the renovations, somehow or another rolled, I guess they had mules and logs, and they rolled that window and the section that it's made from to the back. And you can see the splices in the floor in the kitchen and it's obvious when you start looking where they said splice couldn't put it back together. I don't think they had an indoor kitchen until probably this time. That's just my guess. I think it was probably out in the other house, which had a fire in it because it's charred in the, are we running out of time?
5 minutes, Jay.
5 minutes, okay. Okay, another problem had to do with the chimney flues. The tops had fallen in. Like an idiot, I used roof jacks to get up there and put those back together. And the roof is 12 on 12 pitch. So if you slip, you go. Then one of the projects that I added to the house was the garage. The first thing was getting a location for it. The house next door was vacant and had been, if you remember the movie, The Big Short, it was involved with a group of mortgages like the mortgages in The Big Short. I could find out nothing by talking to the trustees. And how do you get rid of it? Once you bought it, I finally bought it from the trust of the bonds that were issued with this mortgage as security, which was, it didn't amount to much security. Now, how do you get rid of it? There is the instrument that you hire somebody that has one of these, and they take it down bite by bite. And this was putting driveways back in its place. Then there is the problem of security again. I had my property totally fenced. I went and got bids on the fence. They were too high, so I decided I would build my own. And that means post hole diggers, the old handheld ones, and putting up the frame and learning how to use both the air hammer, which I'd never used before in my life, and also learning how to use the impact screwdriver, which I had never used before. Actually, people in the neighborhood felt sorry for me and came over and showed me how to use those things. They even told, I won't use the total expression out of courtesy and consideration to the visiting pastor, but even one of the hands said, you know, because I had one of Janelle's friends that was younger helping me, and I had her stand back and look and make sure I got the plank somewhat, vertical, and kept a good line at the top. They said, you were just working that old man's something off. Well, actually, she said he was working mine off, because I just believed in building that as quickly as I could. Now, the greenhouse was another project that we added. We had to go, I had to go through the internet and look for Victorian greenhouses that would match. This is imported from Belgium. I had it put up by an importer that also ran an installation crew. He was from the Netherlands. And this is their instant. They came up and spent the night with us, started one afternoon. The next morning, they finished assembling this. Is how fast they could do it. It would have taken me days if I would have ever gotten it together. And here again is the greenhouse at the end. Let's see. We have visitors show up, and they're always welcome. This just happened to be a family of foxes that decided to make home under our hot tub. Actually, the mother and the father raised their family under our hot tub, and that was a lot of fun watching those.
Whoa.
That's it. That concludes my story. Thank you so much.
Please come to the party and enjoy yourself.
Jack, we're all looking forward to the party.
Good.
I think it's going to be a blast. I really enjoyed that.
Well, thank you.
Really enjoyed that. Got something for you here. It's from the club, actually, but and you know what it is because you've been here. But just for those that are visiting, we donate a book on behalf of all those that come to our club and speak. Jack, this is especially informative and entertaining, and I think we're all looking forward to being over at your house next Thursday night.
Good. We look
Okay.
forward to having you.
All right.
There'll be plenty of
Yeah. Okay, good. Now let's get my glasses out. I don't want to say Robin Hood brains again. Okay?
Sorry. Thank you for the dig.
Yeah, I'm glad y'all had fun. Okay? All right, now it's time for the Ace of Diamonds. JB, would you please bring that around to Jack? And everybody's got one of these little blue tickets. And JB's going to spin that around. Jack's going to pull a ticket. Half the amount benefits the Tyler Rotary Club, half benefits the Rotarian winner.
You know, I
The winning Rotary guest receives 25%, and the Rotarian host gets 25%. JB, what's the amount?
That's $711.
$711, and on top of that, today, we've got a special bonus prize donated anonymously by one of our members. They don't want you to know who it is, but it's this beautiful flat screen TV. Yeah. The only person that donated that is an absolute prince. JB will take it, he'll take it to your house. Okay?
Okay, 077.
077, who's got that?
That was an early person.
077.
I've got that for the donor tickets.
Okay.
Boy, who's gonna get the TV?
I guess the TV just gets donated to the club.
Yeah.
So we have an anonymous donor that donates tickets each week, and if we win, that goes to the club. Yeah.
Okay.
Jack of Hearts.
Jack of Hearts, okay. One last thing, I want to ask this one question. Is everybody happy?
Yeah.
All right, good. Now it's time to stand. Let's all stand. And we're going to recite the four-way test of the things that we think, say, or do as Rotarians. First.
Is it true?
Second.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third.
Will it be a good world of friendship?
Fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
All right, guys, if you need me, call me. It's been a great meeting, and we are dismissed.
See my favorite?